Please help me welcome to the stage, Howard Putnam.
Come fly with me, let's fly away. If you can use some exotic booze, there's a bar in far Bombay. Come fly with me, let's fly away. Come fly with me, let's float down.
I know many of you are veterans that are here, and I know many of you that are here are serving your country now. And I just want to say, most of us couldn't be here if it wasn't for you keeping this world and USA free. We were in Normandy 2 weeks ago and visited Omaha Beach and Gold Beach and saw where thousands of our young men and women died for you and me. God bless America. You know, I learned taking Braniff International through Chapter 11 many years ago that turbulence was inevitable, but misery was optional. Every day was a bad day, but unless you could take it into a positive, like Dr. Schuler was talking about. So if you're going to succeed through turbulent times, and most everyone here has been through turbulence, myself included, if you're going to succeed through turbulence, there's great value in preparation and being prepared. And when the time to perform arrives, the time to prepare has passed. Think about that. When the time to perform arrives, the time to prepare has passed. And I can't think of a better example of that than Captain Sully Sullenberger, who landed that US Air Airbus in the Hudson River about 2 years ago. And everyone got out safely and alive. This man was prepared. He'd even had glider training early in his career, never knowing he'd be landing an Airbus in the river. Our son is a captain for US Air in Charlotte. And he told me recently they've now changed the training for the overwater cruise and for ditching. So here is the new training procedure. There you go. I think that was actually taken in San Francisco by the baseball park, probably. And here's a young lady who survived turbulence. Her name's Jessica Cox, lives in Tucson, and I met her through speaking. Jessica was born without arms. And when she first met me 6 years ago, she said, I'm going to learn how to fly. And I hope it didn't show on my face, but I thought, how are you going to do it without arms? But she did. And this photo was taken 2 years ago when she soloed in an air coupe, which has no rudders. It's all tied into the yoke. So Jessica flies with her feet. So she's taken turbulence and made it work for her instead of against her. I grew up on a farm in southwest Iowa. Anybody from Iowa? Go Hawkeyes. Usually I'm the only one here. Oh, I know, I shouldn't have said that. But my dad got the urge to learn how to fly after World War II, and we didn't have any money. So he sold enough cows and pigs to go buy an old Piper Cub that looked about like that. And the day that he brought it home after he had soloed and pulled up by the barn, my mother and two sisters and I are out there applauding this great event. I'm just a kid, but I'm thinking, you know, this is kind of ironic. We don't have any electricity. We don't have any indoor plumbing. We don't have any hot water. We got an airplane out here in the pasture. So I knew then I always wanted to be in aviation. I assumed I was going to be a pilot, but I'm partly colorblind, so that didn't work. So after high school, I went to Chicago to Midway Airport and started loading bags at age 17 and worked my way up from there. But my dad taught me how to fly, and then I taught our son Mike how to fly a few years later. And now he's a captain for US Air, as I mentioned. And 20 years ago, he got his instructor's rating, and I hadn't flown for a while, and I thought it would be fun if he could check me out and sign my logbook. How many dads get to teach their son how to fly, and then the roles change, and son could take dad and sign his logbook? We went out and flew for 3 hours, came back and landed. I proudly handed him my logbook, and he pushed it back, and he said, "You're not safe to fly by yourself." So I said what any loving father would say to his son: "Screw you, you're out of the will." That was the little airline I started with at Midway Airport in Chicago, Capital Airlines. And we used to serve Muskegon, Grand Rapids, Lansing, Saginaw, Detroit. I remember all those flights in those days. But the best part about Capital Airlines is I got acquainted with this young, good-looking, attractive, intelligent flight attendant from Ohio named Krista. And Krista's been my great wife for many, many years. And then Capital was merged into United, and I worked my way up to be the head of marketing. And what Dr. Schuler said before is so true about setting a long-term goal. And when I went over to United, I was 23 years old, I think, and being interviewed by one of their psychologists. And he said, "Son, what's your long-term goal?" And I looked him right in the eye, and I said, "I want to be president of the airline." And he laughed at me. And that stuck with me for many, many years. It took 20 years, but we made it when we became the CEO of Southwest Airlines. So you can have a goal. And Southwest was a great experience. I think they only had 12 airplanes and 1,000 employees when I got there. Today they have 540 airplanes, all 737s, simplicity. And I think they have 35,000 employees. They've been in the news recently, as you know, with the airplane that had the rip in the fuselage. But they did absolutely the proper ethical with integrity the next night. When Gary Kelly, the CEO, was told, you know, we have 79 of these airplanes, 737s, they're in that same vintage. It's possible, even though we haven't been asked to check them all, it's possible there could be something wrong. He said, put them all on the ground. 79 airplanes on the ground. They disrupted thousands of passengers, cost them a ton of money, but they did the right thing. So if you have a long-term goal, don't ever let go of that integrity, don't ever let go of the honesty, and don't ever let go of the legacy that you want to leave behind. And Southwest, what I really have always loved about the people there is they're a great team. They're not a team of greats. Nobody sings solo. They all work together. So when I went down to interview with Herb Kelleher, the chairman and the co-founder, the question I had for him, are we just going to play the game like every other airline, or are we going to change the way the game is played? And he said, let's change the way the game is played. And that's when Southwest began to figure out we weren't an airline. We were mass transportation. That's a totally different business. And there you need a culture and you need people to support that value proposition. The other thing that happens to us all is once you go through turbulence, and turbulence has stages you go through, but everything goes in cycles. Companies, countries, organizations, airlines, and the aviation industry, look where it's been in the last 85 years. There was the first jet airplane built in 1942. And there's 3 generations of airplanes a few years ago in Portland, Oregon. And then here's a list of a whole bunch of airlines that you and I used to fly. They're gone. The cycle continues to go. So that's okay. It's okay to have turbulence. It's okay to go through cycles, just understanding that's what's going to happen to all of us. There's the Voyager that Dick Rutan flew around the world nonstop in '86. And then the cycle began to end and the Concorde went back to the UK. But now the cycle has started again. And Burt Rutan, Dick's brother, has built Spaceship One and Mothership One and Spaceship Two. And they're going to go to the edge of space within the next 2 to 3 years. And those are unmanned aircraft. Those are models right there. But the military says within 10 years, 50% of all flights in the military will be unmanned. That's incredible. Think of the cycles, think of the change, think of the turbulence. And there was a Boeing one there. So we wrote the vision for little old Southwest. It was only 52 words long. It was kind of tactical, kind of strategic, but we implanted it into the fabric of the organization so that every employee understood what's in it for me. So if you're thinking about your long-term goals as an individual or as a company, also think about what is the vision that I really want to follow? What's the flight plan that I'm going to take? What business am I really in? And then what kind of culture, if I'm hiring people to support me, what kind of culture do I need to support that value proposition? My friend Simon Sinek in New York, this is his line, and I love it. If you sell a product, you're just a vendor or a supplier. But if you sell a vision or experience, now you can develop a brand. You, as an individual, develop a brand. My brand is, I will always be known as the former CEO of Southwest Airlines. So what's your brand? What will you be known as, and what will take you on? And that was the original flight attendant uniforms. Couldn't figure out when I got there why there were no complaints, but there's the original graduating class in 1971. And two of those young ladies are still flying today. Isn't that amazing? They're going to have their 40th anniversary as an airline in June. So we interviewed as many as we could of these original flight attendants to find out why they were such great flight attendants. And you know what it came down to? That uniform attracted a certain kind of young lady. They were either cheerleaders, drum majorettes, baton twirlers in high school. They knew they were going to look good in the uniform when they applied for the job. They were in show business. So we interviewed them all, and there's what we learned. And Southwest today still uses this to hire across the entire company. Higher attitudes, teach them skills. Higher attitudes, teach them skills. They were all cheerful, optimistic, great decision makers, and if you've flown Southwest, you know they play all the games. They make up all their own announcements. We never wrote them for them. They're great team players, and they have a sense of humor. So Southwest had figured out the vision, the business, and developed the culture to support it. And they play some of the games, and I won't take time to go through those, but that was me in the prisoner's outfit. But there's Herb Kelleher, the co-founder and chairman, and it's Gary Kelly, who's dressed up as the Hairspray character. And every year the employees decide what Gary's going to be on Halloween. And here he's ZZ Top. And then he goes out and flies the airline for a day and serves peanuts and has fun with the passengers. And then this past year, they were all Toy Story 3, and that's Gary with the big hat on in the back. And all the other people there, they're all vice presidents. They all participate. And that's what Gary looks like in real life in the blue shirt. And Herb Kelleher, the co-chairman, chairman emeritus now, and Colleen Barrett, who went on to become president a few years ago. And then I was recruited to go to Braniff International and try to save it. And it was sort of an Enron. And we kept it alive for 7 months, but then we had to put it into Chapter 11 and reorganize it. And we got it flying again within 16 months later. But it was a great character building experience for me. And I thought yesterday, I took an hour and went across the street, across your beautiful river. You ought to be proud of the way your river and all looks here in Grand Rapids. I think it's amazing. And I went to the Gerald Ford Museum for an hour. And what I always admired about Mr. Ford was his integrity and how he stood up for what he believed. And I learned, taking Braniff International through bankruptcy, you better stick with what you believe and stick with your integrity. There's no, it's kind of like squeezing toothpaste out of the tube. Once you squeeze it out, you can't get it back. So once you're dishonest, it'll never return to the other side. And I've met some great people with integrity over the years. That man in the middle was W.A. Patterson, the founder of United Airlines. And if you can believe it or not, that's me on his right with the big thick glasses on many years ago. I was taken in San Francisco. And there was my friend, Coach Tom Landry from the Cowboys, and I'm standing next to him with that hat on, and we were dedicating an airplane to the Cowboys, and I thought I'd get a smile out of him, and he never even let on that I was standing there. But he was a great man, a great role model, a great leader. And another one of my heroes and role models, and you and I all need role models, but we have to be role models as well. There's my friend Neil Armstrong, the first man to walk on the moon. We live in Reno, Nevada most of the time, and I've served on the board of the Reno Air Races for years, so we would bring the astronauts out. Role models, patriots, ethical people, there are a lot of those great leaders still around. We just have to look for them. And there's Gene Cernan, the white hair man, is the last man to walk on the moon. And another great role model and another great success story. Perception can sometimes become reality. And this was my hotel room in Portland, Oregon one time. And if you notice, my room was 708. There isn't one. But we went around the corner and the bellman said, yeah, there is, man, it's right here. And when he went back and looked again, he said, I've worked here for 5 years, never noticed that before. So my perception was somebody's not paying attention to the small stuff around here. This went on for several years, and I would tell the story when I was speaking, and somebody would say, I'll get the sign fixed. They never did. And finally, 5 years later, we were up there. Look, same sign, still there. So perception can become reality. And the final point I want to make with you is that what you're doing today is so important. I wish earlier in my career I could have heard this great group of speakers that you're going to be hearing after me and Dr. Schuler. We need some balance in our lives. And an airplane will fly with 2 blades, 3 blades, 4 blades, but if they get out of balance, they're going to crash and burn. And the same thing will happen to you and me. So I drew my own propeller a few years ago, and mine happens to say family, work, community, church, and personal. And I just keep it in my home office in Reno, Nevada all the time, excuse me, and to remind me that I need balance between work and family. And so we've done some crazy things like drive NASCAR, and then I did another skydive 2 years ago for USA Today. And if you notice, the only guy that doesn't have a helmet was me, the client. But I figured that, at 13,000 feet, what the hell difference is it going to make? Anyway. So I took our daughter Sue along with me, and so we sort of had some bonding to go along too. I saw that bumper sticker one time. Are you really the person your dog thinks you are? We are all in the people business. And I think son Mike said it so well when he was 4 years old, couldn't read. And we stopped at a truck stop restaurant in Hannibal, Missouri. The waitress brought him a high chair. She brought him a menu, glass of water, a napkin, the whole 9 yards. And he sat there with the menu upside down and turned to his mother, Krista, and he said, hey, Mom, she thinks I'm a people. She thinks I'm a people. Thank you very much. God bless America.
Fly with me, let's fly, let's